Slow English, timeless stories, quiet moments. Welcome to Quiet English with Jacque. I'm Jacque, and I'm so glad you've joined me. This is Season 5. This season will journey through some of the world's most beloved public domain stories, reading the original texts in slow, clear English. Whether you're learning English, rediscovering a favorite classic, or simply enjoying a quiet moment at the end of the day, I'm delighted you're here. Today's story is A Dog of Flanders by Ouida, first published in 1872. Ouida was the pen name of English novelist Maria Louise Ramée. Her stories were known for their warmth, compassion, and unforgettable characters. A Dog of Flanders has become one of her most loved books, touching readers around the world for generations with its timeless themes of kindness, loyalty, hope, and love. As with all the stories we'll read this season, I encourage you to pick up the book and read it for yourself. Every reading reveals something new, and there is a special joy in experiencing a book for yourself. So, settle into a comfortable place, take a slow, deep breath, and let's journey together to the quiet villages of Flanders, where our story begins. Nello and Patrasche were left alone in the world. They were friends, in a friendship closer than brotherhood. Nello was a little Ardenoise. Patrasche was a big Fleming. They were both of the same age, but by length of years. Yet one was still young, and the other was already old. They had dwelt together almost all their days. Both were orphaned and destitute, and owed their lives to the same hand. It had been the beginning of the tie between them, their first bond of sympathy, and it had strengthened day by day and had grown with their growth, firm and indissoluble, until they loved one another very greatly. Their home was a little hut on the edge of a little village, a Flemish village, a league from Antwerp, set amidst flat breadths of pasture and cornlands, with long lines of poplars and of alders bending in the breeze on the edge of the great canal which ran through it. It had about a score of houses and homesteads, with shutters of bright green or sky blue, and roofs rose red or black and white, and walls whitewashed until they shone in the sun like snow. In the center of the village stood a windmill, placed on a little moss-green slope. It was a landmark to all the level country round. It had once been painted scarlet, sails and all, but that had been in its infancy, half a century or more earlier, when it had ground wheat for the soldiers of Napoleon, and it was now a ruddy brown, tanned by wind and weather. It went queerly by fits and starts, as though rheumatic and stiff in the joints from age. But it served the whole neighborhood, which would have thought it almost as impious to carry grain elsewhere as to attend any other religious service than the Mass that was performed at the altar of the little old gray church with its conical steeple, which stood opposite to it, and whose single bell rang morning, noon, and night, with that strange, subdued, hollow sadness which every bell that hangs in the Low Countries seems to gain as an integral part of its melody. Within sound of the little melancholy clock, almost from their birth upward, they had dwelt together, Nello and Patrasche, in the little hut on the edge of the village, with the cathedral spire of Antwerp rising in the northeast, beyond the great green plain of seeding grass and spreading corn that stretched away from them like a tideless, changeless sea. It was the hut of a very old man, of a very poor man, of old Jehan Daas, who in his time had been a soldier, and who remembered the wars that had trampled the country as oxen tread down the furrows, and who had brought from his service nothing except a wound which had made him a cripple. When old Jehan Daas had reached his full 80, his daughter had died in the Ardennes, hard by Stalivo, and had left him in legacy her 2-year-old son. The old man could ill contrive to support himself, but he took up the additional burden uncomplainingly, and it soon became welcome and precious to him. Little Nello, which was but a pet diminutive for Nicholas, throve with him, and the old man and the little child lived in the poor little hut contentedly. It was a very humble little mud hut indeed, but it was clean and white as a seashell, and stood in a small plot of a garden ground that yielded beans and herbs and pumpkins. They were very poor, terribly poor. Many a day they had nothing at all to eat. They never, by any chance, had enough. To have had enough to eat would have been to have reached paradise at once. But the old man was very gentle and good to the boy, and the boy was a beautiful, innocent, truthful, tender-natured creature, and they were happy on a crust and a few leaves of cabbage, and asked no more of earth or heaven, save indeed that Patrasche should be always with them, since without Patrasche, where would they have been? For Patrasche was their Alpha and Omega, their treasury and granary, their store of gold and wand of wealth, their breadwinner and minister, their only friend and comforter. Patrasche dead or gone from them, they must have laid themselves down and died likewise. Patrasche was body brains, hands, head, and feet to both of them. Patrasche was their very life, their very soul, for Jehan Daas was old and crippled, and Nello was but a child, and Patrasche was their dog. A dog of Flanders, yellow of hide, large of head and limb, with wolf-like ears that stood erect, and legs bowed and feet widened in the muscular development wrought in his breed by many generations of hard service. Patrasche came of a race which had toiled hard and cruelly from sire to son in Flanders many a century, slaves of slaves, dogs of the people, beasts of the shafts and the harness, creatures that live straining their sinews in the gall of the cart, and died breaking their hearts on the flints of the streets. Patrasche had been born of parents who had labored hard in their days over the sharp-set stones of the various cities and the long, shadowless, weary roads of the two Flanders and of Brabant. He had been born to no other heritage than those of pain and of toil. He had been fed on curses and baptized with blows. Why not? Patrasche was but a dog. Before he was fully grown, he had known the bitter gall of the cart and the collar. Before he had entered his 13th month, he had become the property of a hardware dealer who was accustomed to wander over the land north and south, from the blue sea to the green mountains. They sold him for a small price because he was so young. This man was a drunkard and a brute. The life of Patrasche was a life of hell. To deal the tortures of hell on the animal creation is a way of showing belief in it. His purchaser was a sullen, ill-living, brutal Brabantian who heaped his cart full with pots and pans and flagons and buckets and other wares of crockery and brass and tin, and left Patrasche to draw the load as best he might, whilst he himself lounged idly by the side in fat and sluggish ease, smoking his black pipe and stopping at every wine shop or cafe on the road. And this is where we'll pause today's story. In our next episode, we'll continue following Nello and his faithful companion, Patrasche, as their remarkable journey begins to unfold. If you enjoyed today's episode, I hope you'll subscribe so you won't miss the rest of this beautiful story. If you're learning English, remember that listening to the same episode more than once is one of the best ways to improve your understanding, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Thank you for spending these quiet moments with me. If you know of a public domain story that deserves to be shared, or if you're a writer with a gentle story of your own that you'd like me to read, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at my email address, JacqueEddieVoice@gmail.com. Jacque is spelled Jacque, or you can leave me a fan mail. Until next time, be still, be safe, keep listening. God bless.